Indonesia's new cabinet officially sworn in. Army General Long Chong named as new Vietnamese president. Salam Malaysia, Madani, I'm Brunei Fong. You are watching World Today. Indonesia's newly minted leader, President Prabowo Subianto, officially swore in his cabinet on Monday, a team which analysts said reflected continuity of his predecessor's main policies. Prabowo took office on Sunday as the 8th Indonesian president, taking the mantle from Joko Widodo, more popularly known as Jokowi.
In a fiery speech to lawmakers, he promised to eradicate corruption and aim to reach self-sufficiency in food and energy. Prabowo's cabinet has 48 ministries with over 100 ministers and deputies, including reappointments of Sri Mulyani Indrawati as finance minister and Bahalil Lahadalia as energy minister. Other key reappointments include chief economic minister Erlangga Hartarto and Erick Thohir as the state-owned enterprises minister. Analysts say Prabowo's reappointments show his intention to continue the policies of Jokowi, especially on the economy. However, Prabowo's cabinet differs in some aspects from Jokowi's, as some ministries have been broken up or renamed. Education and culture ministries are separate, as well as environment and forestry.
Vietnam's parliament elected on Monday Army General Long Chong as the new state president in a widely anticipated move that is expected to bring some stability to Vietnamese politics after a turbulent phase of departures and reshuffles.
Truong, 67, takes over the role from Tu Lam, who was appointed president of the communist-run one-party country in May, and then also took on the more powerful job of party chief following the death in July of General Secretary Nguyen Phu Trong. Truong was elected with the vote of all the 440 deputies who attended the parliament session. In his inaugural speech, he committed to boosting defense capabilities by building an army force that is revolutionary, well-trained, nimble and modern, and pursuing an independent and multilateral foreign policy. Vietnam has long been seeking to diversify its arsenal from mostly Russia-made weapons, but has not reported any significant deal in recent years. Before the election, Truong held a key position in the Secretariat of the Communist Party, which made him the fifth highest ranking officials in the country after party chief, president, prime minister and parliament's chairman.
4 people, including a child, were killed on Monday evening in Israeli strikes near Lebanon's biggest public hospital close to the southern suburbs of Beirut. And according to its health ministry, the Israeli enemy strike near the Hariri hospital also injured 24, adding that the attack had caused significant damage to the hospital.
Israel launched more strikes on Hezbollah's South Beirut bastion Monday, including for the first time the Ozai district, shortly after the Israeli occupation forces warned residents of several areas to evacuate. While most districts of Beirut's southern suburbs had been emptied for almost a month, the densely packed residential area of Ozai was still filled with people because it had never been targeted before. There were also reported strikes on the Harid neighborhood just south of Ozai and near Lebanon's largest public hospital. Rescuers said they were looking for survivors amid the devastation in Ozai, adding that an evacuation order followed swiftly by the strike caused panic among residents who started to run in the streets.
United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken departed for the Middle East on Monday as Washington is pushing to kickstart ceasefire negotiations to end the Gaza war following the death of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. The top U.S. diplomat's latest trip to the region, which is also his 11th since 7 October last year, when the Gaza war was triggered, comes even as Israel has intensified its military campaign in Gaza and in Lebanon against Iran-aligned militia Hezbollah. According to a statement by the State Department, Blinken will discuss with regional leaders the importance of ending the Gaza war, ways to chart a post-conflict plan for the Palestinian enclave, as well as how to reach a diplomatic solution to the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. The U.S. is trying to defuse complex interlocked conflicts after Israel raised the stakes by assassinating the leaders of Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza, while showing no sign of reining in its ground and aerial offensives. The State Department added that the top diplomat's trip will start with Israel, but did not provide the other exact destinations. United States Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin announced during a visit to Kiev on Monday a new package of $400 million in arms for Ukraine, including additional munitions, armored vehicles, and anti-tank weapons. Austin made the announcement of the additional aid during a meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
The aid package includes additional munitions, armored vehicles, and anti-tank weapons. Austin visited Ukraine in a show of solidarity with Kiev just 2 weeks ahead of a U.S. presidential election that is casting uncertainty over the future of Western support. Austin cast Ukraine's fight against Russian President Vladimir Putin's invasion as critical to the West's own security, saying failure to continue supporting Kiev would result in Putin's shadow falling over all Europe. Austin's trip, his fourth and likely final visit as President Joe Biden's Pentagon chief, will include in-depth discussions about U.S. efforts to help Kiev shore up its defenses as Russian forces gain ground in eastern Ukraine.
India and China have reached a deal on patrolling their disputed frontier to end a 4-year military standoff, paving the way for improved political and business ties between the Asian giants.
The news came on the eve of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Russia for a summit of the BRICS regional grouping from 22nd to 24th October, during which Indian officials said he could hold talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping.
Now, as a result of the discussions that have taken place over the last several weeks, an agreement has been arrived at on patrolling arrangements along the line of actual control in the India-China border areas. And this is leading to disengagement and eventually a resolution of the issues that had arisen in these areas in 2020.
Relations between the world's two most populous nations, both nuclear powers, have been strained since clashes between their troops and the largely undemarcated frontier in the western Himalayas left 20 Indian and 4 Chinese soldiers dead in 2020. The two sides had since stopped patrolling several points along the border in the Ladakh region to avoid new confrontations, while moving tens of thousands of new troops and military equipment closer to the freezing highlands.
Japan is set to hold a general election on 27th October, and the snap election was called by Shigeru Ishiba, a 67-year-old former defense minister who was voted in by parliament as Japan's new prime minister early this month.
By dissolving the parliament and calling a snap election, Ishiba hopes to capitalize on his current wave of popularity to revive a party that has seen its public ratings drop in recent months over a series of scandals that partly forced his predecessor, Fumio Kishida, to resign. The ruling Liberal Democratic Party, LDP, which has ruled Japan for almost all of the post-war era, currently holds 258 of 465 seats in the lower house. Although the LDP saw its popularity hit a low of 25.5% in June, the lowest since it regained power in 2012, it remains the most popular party in a fragmented political landscape. The focus of this election is whether the LDP will win the 233 seats needed to keep a lower house majority by itself. Winning an additional 28 seats would help put the coalition past the 261 seats of an absolute stable majority, a level that would ensure control over parliamentary committees, making it easier to push through bills.
Muslim cleric Fethullah Gulen, who was accused by Turkey of organizing a failed 2016 coup, has died in exile in the United States at the age of 83. Gulen, who had lived in the United States since 1999, was once a close ally of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan before the two became bitter enemies.
Gulen moved to Pennsylvania in 1999, ostensibly for health reasons, and from there ran his Hizmet movement, which once operated 4,000 schools in Turkey and 500 others around the world. Initially close to Erdogan, the pair fell out in 2013, and 3 years later, the Turkish strongman accused him of masterminding a coup, dubbing Hizmet the Fethullah Terror Organization. Some 250 people died on 15th July 2016 when a rogue military faction tried to overthrow Turkey's government. Erdogan blamed Gulen's supporters within the military. Even beyond government circles, Gulen was widely disliked for his alleged role in the coup and the widespread influence once wielded by his movement behind the scenes. Although Gulen had wanted to be buried in the western Turkish city of Izmir, there was no chance Ankara would let his body be repatriated, meaning he would likely be interred in Pennsylvania.
President Toledo's sentence to over 20 years imprisonment. That's coming up. South Korean Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yul called for deepened security cooperation at a meeting with visiting UK Foreign Minister David Lammy on Monday at a meeting in Seoul. Tensions have also been running high on the Korean peninsula following a series of missile tests this year by nuclear-armed North Korea.
We take our global strategic partnership one step further by enhancing our strategic alignment and coordination. In a geopolitical landscape where the security of Europe and the Indo-Pacific are increasingly intertwined by the day, as illustrated by the recent developments on the Korean Peninsula and Ukraine, including deployment of North Korean troops to Russia.
Lammy's visit to South Korea came days after Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky accused North Korea of preparing to send 10,000 soldiers to help Moscow's war effort, raising U.S. concerns. NATO Chief Mark Rutte has said there was no evidence of Pyongyang's presence at this stage. Lammy, elected in July after the Labour Party's landslide win, was recently in China, where he promised consistency in Britain's approach to China and described his meeting with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi as constructive.
A Peruvian court on Monday sentenced former President Alejandro Toledo to more than 20 years in prison for accepting multi-million-dollar bribes from scandal-hit Brazilian construction conglomerate Odebrecht. The Superior Court accepted the prison term recommended by the prosecution at a hearing attended by the 78-year-old who led the South American nation from 2001 to 2006.
Toledo, a U.S.-trained economist with a doctorate from Stanford University, maintained he was innocent and asked for leniency, saying he has cancer and heart problems. The court found that he had accepted bribes in exchange for tenders to build 2 sections of an international highway linking the Pacific coast of Peru and the Atlantic coast of Brazil. Toledo's lawyer told reporters that he would appeal the sentence. Odebrecht, which has since changed its name to Novonor, has admitted to paying hundreds of millions of dollars in bribes throughout Latin America to secure huge public works contracts. Toledo is one of several Peruvian presidents implicated in a massive investigation targeting the group, which acknowledged paying millions in bribes to Peruvian officials between 2005 and 2014.
Pakistan approved changes to the constitution on Monday, which included empowering Parliament to pick the Supreme Court's Chief Justice, drawing criticism from opposition parties, who said it was an attempt to subvert the judiciary.
Pakistan's top court has become a battleground between the government and jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan, ruling on issues ranging from a controversial national election to a potential military court trial for Khan and his supporters. The constitutional changes were approved in an extraordinary sessions of Parliament, which was assembled on Sunday, a public holiday, and ran all night, concluding close to dawn on Monday. Previously, the Supreme Court's second most senior judge automatically became the Chief Justice when the top judge retired at age 65. Pakistani politicians have long complained about judicial overreach into matters of governance, stoking tensions between the judiciary and legislature. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif defended the amendment, saying past verdicts had resulted in the sackings of the sitting prime ministers, endorsements of military dictatorships, and the undermining of democracy and parliament.
Cameroonian President Paul Biya arrived on Monday at the capital Yaoundé's international airport after several weeks out of the country amid rumors about his health. The West African nation's 91-year-old leader appeared on television after the presidential plane landed, shaking hands with officials as a jubilant crowd waited to greet him.
Questions about Biya's health and whereabouts grew when he disappeared from public view after leaving Beijing at the beginning of September. Aircraft flight tracking sites showed that a Boeing with aircraft registration CMR 001, previously used to transport Biya, left late Monday morning from Geneva, where official sources said he had been residing for several weeks. On 8th October, after consistent rumors about Biya, the government released a statement saying he would be back in the country in the next few days. Then the government formally banned local media from discussing the state of his health. Biya has been Cameroon's president for over 41 years, second in Africa only to 82-year-old Teodoro Obiang Ngomo Mbasogo, who has held power in Equatorial Guinea for 45 years. He has not picked a successor and not ruled out running again in the next presidential elections in 2025.
Yulia Navalnaya, the wife of the late Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny, said that she would one day return to Russia and run for president when Kremlin chief Vladimir Putin is no longer in power. She has accused Putin of ordering the killing of her husband, a claim the Kremlin has repeatedly dismissed.
Since the death of Navalny in a Russian prison in the Arctic Circle in February, no single leader has emerged to unite the country's disparate opposition, and there has been significant infighting between different Russian dissident groups abroad. While Putin, Russia's paramount leader since the last day of 1999, is still in power, Navalnaya said she would not return. Putin turned 72 this month. In August, Navalnaya dismissed information from investigators that Navalny had died from a combination of diseases. Navalny, 47, died suddenly on 16th February, depriving the Russian opposition of its most charismatic and popular leader. He had been serving sentences totaling more than 30 years on charges he said were rigged in order to silence his criticism of Putin.
Tropical storm Oscar lashed Cuba's eastern end on Monday as the country slowly restores electricity on the island following a fourth major grid failure in 48 hours.
Strong winds and heavy rain uprooted trees and scattered downed power lines in places, complicating recovery efforts. Director of the Cuban Meteorology Institute, Celso Pazo, said strong winds have decreased since Monday morning, but strong swells remain on the eastern coast. According to the Institute's latest report, Oscar continues to weaken after making landfall yesterday in Guantanamo as a Category 1 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson scale and then downgrading to a tropical storm. The heaviest damage following the storm's passage occurred in Guantanamo in the municipalities of Baracoa, Emias, and Maisi, where major flooding has been recorded and more than 1,000 homes are reported to have suffered damage of various degrees. Cuba's national electrical grid first crashed on Friday before Oscar's arrival, after the island's largest power plant shut down, leaving 10 million people without electricity. The grid has fully or partially failed 3 times since, underscoring the precarious state of the country's infrastructure.
Sean Diddy Combs has been hit with 7 new sexual abuse lawsuits as his lawyers ask the judge overseeing the music mogul's criminal sex trafficking case for a gag order against Combs' accusers and their lawyers. The civil lawsuits were made public on Sunday and Monday by 4 men and 3 women over alleged misconduct in New York, Los Angeles, and Las Vegas, dating to 2000 but mainly in 2022. Some lawsuits said unidentified celebrities also assaulted Combs' accusers. Combs, 54, faces at least 24 civil lawsuits accusing him of sexual misconduct. Combs has denied wrongdoing and pleaded not guilty in the criminal case as he is appealing his more than month-long detention in a Brooklyn jail after being denied bail twice. The new lawsuits compound the legal problems for Combs, who, according to prosecutors, coerced victims into participating in sex acts against their will, bribing and intimidating them into keeping quiet and employing his staff to hide it all. Combs faces a criminal trial on 5th May next year on 3 felony counts of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Still to come in sports, Neymar returns to action in goal-packed ACL clash. Neymar returned to action for Al Hilal's hard-fought 5-4 win over UAE Pro League side Al Ain in the Asian Champions League earlier this morning. The 32-year-old Brazil forward came on for the injured Nasser Al-Dawsari in the 77th minute with his team leading 5-3. Thanks to Salim Al-Dawsari's hat-trick and goals from Sergei Milinkovic-Savic and Renan Lodi.
Neymar then came close to scoring after a counter-attack late on before Al Ain pulled one back in stoppage time with a penalty from Soufiane Rahimi, who also bagged a hat-trick. Al Hilal survived a lengthy additional time where their rivals pushed for an equalizer and will remain top of the West Asian standings after 3 rounds of the league phase. The reigning Saudi Pro League champions also lead the league standings with 21 points. Neymar had not played for a year after suffering a cruciate knee ligament injury during Brazil's qualifier against Uruguay. He underwent surgery last November. Having moved to Saudi Arabia from French champions Paris Saint-Germain for a reported 90 million euros transfer fee in August last year, Neymar had only played 5 games before his layoff as he was struggling with muscle injuries.
Arsenal hit the training pitch on Monday as they prepare to bounce back from their first Premier League defeat of the season in their home clash against Ukrainian side Shakhtar Donetsk in the Champions League.
Saturday's 2-0 loss at Bournemouth brought Arsenal's unbeaten start to the league season to a shuddering halt and left them third in the standings on 17 points, 4 behind leaders Liverpool and 3 behind Manchester City. Arsenal head coach Mikel Arteta has said his team needs to eradicate the ill discipline that has seen them pick up 3 red cards in 8 Premier League games this season. William Saliba's red card and the defeat at Bournemouth followed those of Declan Rice and Leandro Trossard earlier this term. Arteta's side hosts Shakhtar tomorrow following a goalless draw in their opener at Atalanta and a 2-0 home victory over Paris Saint-Germain, leaving them 13th in the new Champions League format with 4 points from 2 games. Shakhtar are winless in their Champions League campaign after a goalless draw at Bologna and a 3-0 loss to Atalanta. The team have had to adjust to playing on the road, having moved out of Donetsk a decade ago after pro-Russian separatists seized large areas of the region.
Alexander Zverev wasted little time kickstarting his Otis Bank Open campaign on Monday night in Vienna. The number 3 in the PIF ATP rankings eased past home next-gen ATP World card Joel Schwarzler 6-2, 6-2 at the indoor hardcourt ATP 500.
Top seed Zverev did not face a breakpoint in his maiden Lexus ATP head-to-head clash with the 18-year-old Schwarzler. He won 96% of points behind his first delivery and generally proved too powerful for his relatively inexperienced opponent. With his 67-minute victory, Zverev equaled his personal best of 60 tour-level wins in a season from 2018. Zverev is chasing his second tour-level title of 2024 this week in Austria. After hitting the 60-win mark for the year, the Rome champion reasserted his desire to finish the season strongly. Awaiting Zverev in the second round in Vienna will be next-gen ATP Alex Mikkelsen or Marcos Giron. He has never lost before the quarterfinals in 3 previous appearances in the Austrian capital, where he lifted the trophy in 2021.
Aryna Sabalenka's return to top spot in the WTA rankings after leapfrogging Iga Swiatek has set up a thrilling end to the season, with next month's WTA finals in Saudi Arabia likely to prove decisive in the race to end the year as world number 1.
Sabalenka has enjoyed a spectacular season, defending her Australian Open title in January and adding the US Open trophy to her cabinet last month, as well as enjoying victories in Cincinnati and Wuhan. Players are mandated to compete in 6 WTA 500 events, but Swiatek's decision to skip the tour's Asian swing due to fatigue meant the French Open champion will only manage to play in 2 this season. The penalty saw her drop below Sabalenka in the rankings. Sabalenka spent 8 weeks at the summit last year before Swiatek overtook her with a victory at the season-ending WTA finals, and the Belarusian hopes for a longer stay as number 1. Sabalenka is also not in action this week after her Wuhan success and will lose points for only playing in 4 WTA 500 events. She currently has 9,706 points, while Swiatek has 9,665 ahead of the finals, which will offer 1,500.
And that wraps up this afternoon's edition of World Today. In our top story, Indonesia's new cabinet officially sworn in. Till then, I'm Renee Fong. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thanks for watching and have a pleasant afternoon.